Course 2, Lesson 7, Lines, Angles, and Planes. Today you're going to identify figures with no dimensions and those with 1 and 2 dimensions. We're going to use symbols to identify points, lines, rays, segments, and angles. We're going to identify when lines intersect, when they're parallel, when they're oblique, when they're perpendicular, and when they're skew. We're going to learn about angles and planes. Here is your vocabulary list. Please print it off and learn and memorize these definitions and know them. I can't tell you enough how important it is you know these definitions because they do show up on tests. They will call things segments. They'll say skew lines. You need to know what they're talking about. In geometry, we start off with a point. Point is simply a small dot, and they usually identify that with a capital letter. It's not measurable. It's just called a point. Next, we have a line. A line contains infinite number of points. I mean, there's so many points in between here, you can't even mark them all, right? And the line, really don't care how thick the line is. It has one dimension that is simply just length, and it is shown by a line with 2 arrowheads at each end. And then we identify the line by naming the 2 points on it. In this case here, we've named it point A and point B, and we call that AB or line BA, go either direction. We can show that when we write it by putting that little double arrowhead above it. That tells the person looking at that that's a line AB or BA. A ray is part of a line that has one endpoint. We identify a ray by naming the endpoint and then the other end of the ray. In this case here, we've named the endpoint A. So our ray is ray AB because it starts at A and goes towards the B. And we show that by drawing the arrow over the top. Notice it doesn't have 2 arrowheads, it just has the 1 arrowhead on the B end. A segment is a line that has 2 endpoints, and then we just identify both of those. So in this case here, this would be segment AB, and we would show that without any arrowheads above it at all, just the line straight across it. Or you could call it BA if you wanted, if you go the other way. A segment has a specific length, though. It doesn't go on forever like a ray up here. This here ray just can go on and on and on. But in the case of a segment, it does have endpoints on both ends. And to show the measure of that, sometimes they'll write that with an M in front of it like that. Or sometimes they'll just leave it with nothing over it at all, like you see down here. Those all mean what's the measure. So the measure of AB plus the measure of AB plus the measure of BC equals the measure of all of this. That's what it's saying there. Or they could write it with the M's like they have down here. So in our first example, we're going to use symbols to name a line, 2 rays, and a segment using what they've given us right here. Go ahead and see if you can discover a line, 2 rays, and a segment. The line is AB or BA. The rays, if you have an endpoint here and go this way, is AB, an endpoint here and going this way is BA. And then of course our segments, we could just we'd take these arrowheads off and we have our segment A to B. Figure 2, AB from here to here is 3 centimeters. So how far is it from how far is B to C? How far is this right here if the whole thing is 7? See if you can calculate that. You should be able to. It's pretty easy math. Correct answer is 4 centimeters. Because we know that AB is 3, so BC must be 4 if the whole segment from A to C, the whole line is 7. A plane is a flat surface like a desktop or a piece of paper. It has length and it has width. And when you have two planes that cross each other, like in the example that we have right here, where they cross is called the intersect. In this case here, we've labeled this intersect as point M. So we would say that lines AB and CD intersect at point M. And if two lines in a plane do not intersect, but yet they're going the same direction and they're the same distance apart, then they're called parallel lines. So QR and ST in this example here are parallel. They could go like that, be parallel like that, just so they're going the same direction and they're the same distance apart. And that's written with the parallel lines in between the two like that. And the last thing is perpendicular lines. These form square corners. We also refer to this as a right angle. But when they perfectly cross and they have the square corners here, then they are called perpendicular lines. Lines in a plane that are neither parallel or perpendicular are called oblique. This is an example of that. These are going to be our perpendicular lines. Here's our parallel lines, and these ones here are our oblique lines. An angle is formed when two rays have a common endpoint. If you come over here at the picture here on the right, you see the common endpoint of M. This forms an angle. The way we say that is we pick either one, either the D or the B first. I'm going to start with just the D, and we go DMB, angle DMB. If we were to start with the B, then it would be BMD. That's an angle. This right here, where the two lines come together, two rays come together, is called the vertex. And so when they have an angle, they'll identify this several ways. In the first example up here, it's DMB. Down here, they're just going to label the bottom as angle A, because there's only one angle, so they call it angle A. Or they'll draw a line out of the one and call it angle 1. So you can see an angle expressed in any of those three forms. The most common we see are these top two. Very seldom do they use angle 1. But you need to know all three so there's no confusion there. But this symbol right here represents the term angle right there. So angles are classified by their size. An angle formed by perpendicular rays is called a right angle, or a 90-degree angle, and is commonly marked with a small square at the vertex. See it right there? An angle smaller than a right angle is called an acute angle. An angle that forms a straight line is just a straight angle, and then if it's larger than the right angle, it's an obtuse angle. So that's an acute angle. What would that be? That's an acute angle also. What would that be? That's an acute angle, or an obtuse angle. And that would be a straight angle. What would this be? That would be a straight angle also. Very good. There are several angles in this figure. I want you to identify a straight angle, obtuse angle, two right triangles, and two acute angles. See if you can write them the right way that we learned in the previous slides. Go back and rewind if you need to see if you can identify these. Our right angles are AMD and DMA. Our straight angles, I'm sorry, not our right angles, but our straight angles is AMD. Our obtuse angles are AMC or CMA if you're coming back the other way. Our two right angles are AMB or BMA, or we go BMD or DMB. And then our acute angles are the CMD, CMD, or DMC. Good job. If you got all those right, way to go. A power pole with two cross pieces can be represented by three segments. Name the vertical segment that you see over here on the right. Name a horizontal segment, and then name a segment perpendicular to C and D. What's the answer to A? AB or BA. Vertical means up and down. Horizontal means left and right. So our horizontal segments are the CD and the EF, or you could say DC or FE. And then our segments that are perpendicular to CD, here's CD. To be perpendicular, it's got to run the exact opposite direction. That's going to be AB or BA. So let's do a little practice. Draw for me two parallel lines. No, don't draw them for me. Draw them for yourself, and then let's see if you got them right. They should look like that. They could be straight like this. They could be straight up and down. Or they're going to be the same distance apart and be going in the same direction. What do perpendicular lines look like? Draw some perpendicular lines. You should have drawn something that looks like this. Now draw two lines that intersect but are not perpendicular. And then tell me, what are those lines called? You should have drawn something that looks like this. Oh, that's probably a little too... Let's take that line there and make it a little more... That's almost too perpendicular there. So let's do them like more like that. So they're not perpendicular. What are those called? They're called skew lines. Draw a right angle for me. Should look like that. Acute angle, you should have drawn looking like that. And obtuse angle would have been that. Take time now and do these problems. Submit them to me in your coursework. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll go over the questions you have, work on our assignments in class. Thank you for watching the video.